started.
I'd
like to call the meeting to order. Everybody that can, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Looks like we're missing Mr. Salvia. Everyone else is present.
Okay, the item 4, approval of the agenda. We want to make a couple of changes. The first one is under pending business. I'd like to postpone that and move that forward to October 9th, 2019 with the map amendment. We're still going to introduce the map.
Yes.
So we're still going to have, what happens is we're going to have a public hearing. So we might as well do it on the 9th at the same time as opposed to, it messes us up. So that's a request there. The other item I'd like to add in place of that, short discussion on WODA. Kind of bring us up to date on where that's heading.
Where's that going to be at?
That'll be 9 or 8A, we'll call it.
Why is that pending?
Because we've been discussing it pretty much all along. It's just a discussion and no vote at this time, so. And I think that should do it.
I would move to approve the agenda with the changes mentioned.
Support.
Moved in support, vote please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next item is number 5, consent agenda approval.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
It's not hard not having Joe there to
Yeah.
clean
I'll have my
it. Okay, announcements and information inquiry, the Highland Farmers Market, every Saturday till October 26th from 9 to noon, 9 a.m. to noon. The Highland Activity Center Health Fair is tomorrow, September 26th. The community dinner, the Highland Community with a capital U dinner, is scheduled for October 19th, 2019, and we have some tickets available up here after the meeting if you'd be interested. They're
15.
$15 a piece, and I think you'd find it to be a very interesting event. The Chill at the Mill raffle for handmade king-size quilt, the tickets are $5 each, or 5 tickets for $20. They can be had at the library, at the town hall, come to any one of the desks, and we can get those for you. Public comment? Is anybody here from, before I get any farther, is anybody here for the zoning over by Hickory Ridge Road? One person. Okay, what we'll do is we'll have the public comment, and I'll allow you to comment, and we'll put that into record so that it's not, we're not trying to slough it off. This thing has been put off an awful lot, so it seems like we're pushing for some reason. So we want you to have your opportunity to speak, and we will have that public comment at our next board meeting on October 9th. I guess it is.
Hearing.
So public comment?
You want to say?
No, I don't want to say.
Okay.
Hi, Gary Cornelier, 3248 Lakeview Drive, Seven Harbors, Highland, Michigan. I would just like to highlight a couple people on our board tonight, and because sometimes they get negative, and it's hard, negative publicity and comments, and I know that touches their heart because they're very good people at hand. None of these people, from our supervisor to any of our board members, I think, woke up one day and Warren thought they were going to become politicians, but they've done a great job. Just look at the spinal column from our township treasurer. How your money is spent. She took the time to put in an informative article in there on that. Also in here from our wonderful Tammy Flowers, how about voting. On this front of the spinal column, Joe Salvia, who isn't here tonight, who does so many things. In this article, it's about him on the Highland Schools Building and Futures Committee. Here's another one with Joe with the Education Committee. When Rick Hamill, who everyone knows, when my son first was young and Rick first got into politics, we asked him, what is it like? And he said, it's like kind of putting your head into a pair of big vice grips. But I would like to comment on some of the other members of the board at another time. They're teachers, they go to our churches, they're involved in our community, and I just wanted to take my few minutes just to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
I'll give kudos.
That hand goes to the board.
A feel-good moment, all right.
There you go.
It only takes one like that to make up for some
I think a lot
of
of
the
people
other
do
stuff.
that.
All right, any other public comment? All right, we'll move on to pending business. Want to bring everybody up to speed on WODA. It's short in terms of a Rick short. I guess I'll try to keep it short. On your desk, you'll find a copy of an interlocal agreement for transportation services, and if you look, you'll notice it says between the Charter Township of Highland and the Charter Township of White Lake. And I know that we've been talking about having multiple communities involved. We still do. But what has come up is White Lake's in dire straits to need help with their buses. They have 2 buses. They've been broken more than half the time. We've been helping them out so that there's people that need rides. We've been helping them by picking up some of their riders and getting them to the hospitals or the doctors and that type of thing for their dialysis or whatever they are involved in. So they're kind of chawing at the bit to get this thing rolling. We've been working on it for a year and a half, and in that year and a half, Gary's been to most of the meetings. We've had attorneys from each township and township elected officials at each one of these meetings, and some of them go on for 4 hours or more. In that process, all the attorneys have had their input on the agreements. The drafting of it has all been nitpicked, and so it's been really drilled down and I think turned into a rock solid agreement. So another thing that has come up that's very interesting is we've all wondered about what the Regional Transit Authority, what their game plan was going to be. And if anybody's paid attention, the Regional Transit Authority is a state mandated authority that can collect money via property taxes and or license plates. They've chosen to use property taxes as the mode for their potential capture of revenue in order to help build a 4-county regional transit system. They are not a bus company. They're not like SMART. They're not like DDOT. They are an authority that is there to distribute federal dollars and state and local monies that they capture to the entities that are going to do these services. So what it turns out is back in 2016, they came out and it was on the ballot and it got voted down pretty handily. In 2018, it went back on the ballot and it only missed by 18,000 votes, which isn't very much. And they've rewritten some of the parameters. Now it used to be that you might be able to opt out. Well, now no township can opt out. So it's Wayne, Macomb, Washtenaw, and Oakland County are the 4 counties. Only 2 counties have to vote it in this time. So the irony is that the rainbow, at the end of the rainbow, which happens to be Macomb and Oakland County, is where the goal's at. Because the taxable value of Oakland and Macomb counties is far and above the taxable value of Wayne County. So they need the revenues that they can capture from the northern 2 suburbs in order to make the program work as a whole. So there's connectors between Ann Arbor and Detroit. Anyways, there's quite a bit of stuff that was put out there. So in 2018, L. Brooks Patterson had negotiated a thing where he wanted to get 85% of the taxes captured in Oakland County to go back to Oakland County. Well, L. Brooks Patterson's passed away. His entire management team has left the building. There's nobody managing that component of it, but the irony of that is that when I started to look into it, I realized that what he was doing was trying to force a capture to stay in Oakland County, and he was going to redistribute it. Now, 85% would stay in Oakland County. But to give you an example, Waterford Township, their capture would have been $3.2 million. Oakland County would have given them $800,000 back. That's not 85%. Highland wouldn't have got peanuts back. That's not 85%. So where's the money going to go? Stays at Oakland County and gets managed through some other systems. So in reality, all this stuff that went up in smoke was a good thing. It's still nerve-wracking because they're going to do a millage. And right now, Highland's millage is 0.6 mils. That's what the taxpayers pay right now. So the average taxpayer pays about $64 a year to your governing body and what we take care of. Of course, you pay more to fire and so on and so forth. That's a little over $400,000 a year. That doesn't even come close to covering what our other expenditures are. So we're getting money from the state that's in the form of shared revenue that is sales tax. There's a lot of different things that we're capturing revenue from. So if the RTA passes, their inference is 1.5 mils. That's $1 million something, 2 or something like that. And that's for a bus program that nobody appears to have. So where will our money go? Down to Washtenaw County and where the bus system is. So I've been working for the last year and a half to try to put together a West Oakland Transit Authority, which is getting the local leadership from all of the surrounding townships to get together and say, hey, let's take our smart buses that we use for seniors and disabled, let's form an authority where we have one management team instead of 5, 10 management teams, however you want to look at it, and capitalize on the fact that Highland has 5 buses and Waterford's got 3 buses and Walled Lake's got 3, and if you take them all and put them all together and you manage the distribution, you'll get a lot more done with it. So for a year and a half, we've been hammering on this, and everybody that's come to that table has been trying to bring it to their board. Well, finally, last night, White Lake took it to their board, and they unanimously agreed to follow through with this 2-party local agreement to get WOTA started. And here's why. We had the director of WODA, or of the RTA at our meeting yesterday morning. And a week ago, I went to they had an open house and a board meeting. I thought, I've got to go talk to these guys because none of the township supervisors are aware of any of the stuff that's going on with this RTA. It's kind of like, I guess because we're just assuming we're going to get stuck with it, you kind of cuckoo that. So I thought, I've got to go to this thing because with Patterson gone, there's nobody talking to these people. So I go to the meeting, and during the open house, I spoke about how it's going to be hard to talk to our constituents about how we're going to whack them for $1.2 million, which means now you're going to pay 3 times as much to us and only get this much value out of it. When I talked to them, they said, well, we're glad you showed up because we don't know what we're going to do, and what we want to do is we want somebody to tell us what they need. So what do you mean, what do you need? What do you need? How much money do you need to make WODA successful? So it's kind of like, geez, if we don't form it, we can't ask for it. If we form it, we now can go directly to the federal level of revenue, which means that we would work directly with the RTA and not through SMART, who keeps 20% of everything that they pass down. So what that did is opened up a different methodology of thinking for the other supervisors. If it isn't, if it doesn't go through, then we still have to figure out how to pay for it. But we also have a direct door open with the RTA to ask for money, which we wouldn't have otherwise. So this has been a real bonus in terms of having the opportunity. I mean, the door's open. You need 500 buses, tell us you need 500 buses. You need $50 million, you tell us you need $50 million. That's a big difference than L. Brooks Patterson telling us that 85% is going to come back. 19 million is what it was at that point. But nobody knew how, where, or when, and then when the numbers started to come out, it's like, wow, where's the rest of it going? And there's still no bus program. So what it boiled down to is the RTA and DDOT, Detroit Department of Transportation, you've got Washtenaw County, Ann Arbor's system, and you got SMART. They all have systems that have bus stops, and they have these circuits that they run. But none of them ever looked at it from the fact that SMART especially, they at one time when they first did this, they threw all these buses out into the public. And they said, here, Highland, have a bus or two if you want them. And ironically, we had an astute bus driver that figured out how to ask for more buses. We ended up with 5 buses, which is more than we physically need, except they break down all the time, so we have alternatives. So when you take all these communities and these buses, and everybody goes, well, what do we do with it? Well, make the senior center director manage it. How's that going to work? Think about that. They have to listen to phone calls. They've got to become dispatchers. They do things that they're not even relatively tuned in for, although those are the kind of people they deal with, which is important. So this is an opportunity to create exactly what Oakland County is probably going to need in the future. I just leased a new pickup truck and looked at the sticker and went, wow, no way are we going to be able to afford cars in the future. So we better start putting a base out there for establishing a program where if we're going to pay for something, we should pay for something we can use. When WODA gets authorized and goes into practice, and we go to the RTA to ask for money, regardless of whether they put it on the ballot or not, the first thing we're going to do is we're going right to the RTA and start talking about how much. Now the bus can pick up anybody. It doesn't have to just pick up 55 years and older and handicapped, which means that if you need a bus ride, you can get a bus ride in Highland. And it's not restricted to what it is right now with the way the funding and that is. So, long story short, what we tried to do is come up with numbers that would work, because to start the program, we have to seed it. And so we bantered back and forth and tried to figure out formulas. Waterford's got the biggest population in, short of Detroit, in terms of numbers, and then White Lake's got more than we do, and we have more than Walled Lake, and how do you divide it up? So what we finally came up with, let's just take and say, this system's gonna service North Oakland County, West Oakland County. Everybody puts in the same amount of money. The bus will migrate to where it's needed the most. And over time, what'll happen is those will start to establish the criterion you need to say, okay, if most of this is going on in Waterford, then maybe Waterford might contribute more, but in reality, you build the system to work like it does for the rest of the community. So the number we've kind of said, okay, what if everybody put $150,000 in? So that's Commerce, White Lake, Waterford, Highland, and then Walled Lake doesn't put in that because we're actually contracting with them to manage their program. So right now they're an opt-in community. They pay a millage, so they're not physically part of WODA by agreement, but by contract. So when we put the numbers together, $150,000 per community falls short $32,000. So we looked at it yesterday and said, all right, we're going to have to rethink those numbers. What are the numbers that are going to make it viable? We came up with some numbers, but to establish the first two to get WODA started, we looked at the budget, and it would take $185,000 up to $185,000 to make that viable, to zero out the contract. So that's something we'll have this on the docket for next our regular board meeting, and in here is the budget for attaches the budget also for this two-party agreement. And yesterday, before we left, Waterford Township said that they're pretty doggone sure they're on board with it. They just have to, it's like me, I can say I'm on board, but I can't speak for the rest of this board. I hope that there's that excitement there, but like I said, White Lake, which started out, they were dead sure they didn't want to deal with it. They were trying to, they had two buses, and they literally had a unanimous vote last night that said, we want to do it, and if you need more money, we'll put more money in it. But it's also based on the relative positive statements of the RTA saying, if you form this, tell us what we need to do, because they want it to be fair. But they can't tell what fair is when there's nobody standing up to say, we have a bus system that we think we can distribute and make work over a broader area. So I think that even one of the bigger things is to have 5 communities get together, and 5 supervisors and some clerk or 2 in there, and sit down and hammer out details to try and make something like that work is really a positive thing for that you just don't see done very often at all. We did have something with Milford. I did invite Don Green yesterday to come. He didn't show up, but he's still interested from the fact that if WODA can make it happen, then there's the resource that Milford and the township and the village could get back involved in it, and then it covers all the areas. So then Wixom, you just can name it off. Independence Township, they go on and on and on. And I meet with 15 supervisors or more once a month, and this is something they've been kind of wondering what to do, and now this is happening. I think it's a better setup. It doesn't mean that I'm out there saying vote for the RTA, because it's going to be a snacker, I think, if they do. But if that's the case, then let's make sure we have something in place to get our money back, at least get value added from it. So, anybody have any questions on that? So, all right, we'll move on. Thanks for the time there. Okay, the next item, number 9, new business. This is an introduction of zoning map amendment Z-012 for C3 low impact commercial. We need a motion to introduce.
I would move to introduce zoning map amendment Z-012 for C3 low impact commercial district.
Support?
Move to support it. Vote please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
These are those things where you go, what did they just do?
Introduced.
Well, we'll make you do your homework, go on the internet, download the packet, and you can look at that, and we just introduced it. So now there's other steps. There's public comment and then voting. Next item, can I get a motion to introduce ordinance 468?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported?
Ready to vote?
Yep,
I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
And to finish that statement, that's to amend the Charter Township Code to change the penalties for the purchase, possession, and use by minors of tobacco products, nicotine products, and vapor products. And that, we're doing that because we had written the ordinance, but there was a misinterpretation of what the sheriff wanted to do versus what other communities have done. The sheriff, this is more for the schools when they catch these kids with stuff. Instead of it becoming a misdemeanor, which is a crime, and it sticks with you for life, it becomes a civil infraction, and we can handle it here in Highland. And so it's a fine, it's a civil infraction, it's a slap. If they continue to do it, then you can take it to the level of misdemeanor. But the object isn't to make criminals out of every kid that decides they want to do something like vaping, which who knew what vaping was going to end up. I can't say I anticipated it. I thought, geez, it's a good way for people to quit smoking.
It's supposed to do.
It went the other way. So that's what that introduction is for. So next meeting we will deal with that. The next item, we're not going to hear this tonight, I don't think. I gotcha.
I used it.
I gotcha. Some residents, including a member of our board, live in Highland Hills subdivision, and their roads are, I've been through them, they're in really bad shape. In most places. There's some places that are still viable, but they're in bad shape. So there was a request sent forward to the Township Board through Judy Cooper and Tammy. The reason I say that is that if you go through me, I can put it on the agenda without having to ask somebody else, but it takes 2 trustees to get it on. So you had 2 people that were there to go for you. So you can bypass me by going to somebody else. If you don't like what I'm doing, or if you think I'm going to say no, you can still get it on. So that's a learning thing there.
Thank you, ladies.
So, in any event, in the past, we've got documentation that shows that we have, over the years since 1971, here's a list of probably 15, 20 projects that we have assisted by contributing to them. And Judy informed me earlier that up until 1982, there was actually 2 mills collected for projects like this, for road
I
repair.
didn't know that
whatever.
until we started diving into it.
So she just learned by looking into this project. So anyways, what we do is we have this list, and it shows different percentages and different amounts that were allocated to different subdivisions. So the difference here is the largest project was $57,000, and that was Dunham Lake Estates in 1982. That would probably be a $5.7 million project today. Who knows? I mean, that's the way we have to look at it. So there's all different percentages, but it tended to go from 25% and it averaged out to 10% per project.
I'm assuming something must have changed, maybe?
Well, we didn't have
The
a
millage,
millage.
the millage
Oh,
was defeated in
okay.
1982.
Oh, okay.
So now, remember what I said about $400,000? That's what we collect in property tax from everybody. So it doesn't add up to much because we burn it up on other things we're doing. So there is no spare, don't get worried here, I'm not going south on you. There's no spare change put aside specifically to help subdivisions redo their roads. And I think that, and this is a personal opinion on my part, what happens is nobody can anticipate what the cost of petroleum products is going to be, what the cost of, of the contractors is going to be. It is, and I used to be in the contracting business, I have seen the escalation of things to the point where you go, who is stealing this money? I mean, where are these costs really coming from? It takes the same time to stick a pipe through the ground today as it did 25 years ago. Why? And the wages aren't that much higher. Literally, 25 years ago, the wages are not any higher. If anything, they're lower. So where are these costs coming in at? Well, I can tell you where a huge chunk of them come from. It's engineering. So a big chunk of that project is Oakland County saying, here's what we're going to charge for engineering. And I don't know what that number is. I didn't look close enough to see what their estimates were. So you've got engineering there, then you've got the contractors have these engineers that are hanging over, which, trust me, in a lot of cases you want to have that because you want to have 3 or 4 inches of asphalt, not a half inch. So what it boils down to is yours is $3.8 million. And it ranges from $10,000 to $14,000 per parcel. And you apparently got 51% or more of the people to agree for the what you call the investigation. And now, to move ahead, you're going to have to do it again. So it's a lot of money. And so what you're asking is you're asking 7 people here, how do you feel about your 5.4% of the homes being paid for by the other 90% of the population? You see what I'm saying is that all these other people that live on these other roads are going to be paying or subsidizing whatever we would agree to give to you guys. So if this was somebody else's subdivision and they were asking the same thing, how would you feel? And that's kind of what we have to look at too. But there's some other factors. I think one of the key factors is, and Tammy, when I first thought about it, I go, geez, this is a precedence. Well, I didn't see any of this before at that time. We're setting a precedence to put out a chunk of change, and who's the next subdivision, and what reserves do we have to pull this money in out of? It has to come out of a savings account because we don't have, it's not spare for that thing. Well, we're putting a path down M59 that finishes from Timber Ridge subdivision to the end of the county. And the township put in $140,000 for our share to do that. The state and the federal government put in the rest of the money. It's a huge amount of money for a 10-foot wide path that how many people are going to walk on? So these are the kinds of things that have to go through my mind when I go, how do we deal with this? So we also have paid money to several different cases, $50,000 one time, to have them skip mill and fill. You know how if you did some of the roads a couple of years ago, they did all these patches and you go, what the heck was that about? Well, it was the cheap way to prep for the next level, which was coat over the top, which now they've done on that, and they'll be doing Middle Road I think next year, possibly. So we put $50,000 towards that. Well, that was other taxpayers' money, but it's a road that the general public uses heavily. Okay, so I can qualify that. That, you know, there's some comfort in doing that because everybody complains about bam, you know, that kind of thing. So how do we account for the more private subdivisions that aren't really pass-throughs or whatever? We pay money to chloride roads. Okay, so there's more money that's going to more roads. So in reality, it looks to me like there's a precedence that says we pay money for road repairs at some point in time. So what would be, and once again, this is just me and my opinion and how I'm trying to process things, what would be the process that you would use to value that investment? In other words, we're not going to call it a gift, we're going to call it an investment. That's my approach. How is it an investment? We give you X number of dollars, whether it's 5 or 10% or whatever it is. This is, once again, just me speaking, nobody else. In essence, what it is it's a amount of money that says we're going to subsidize your property tax for 10 years. Because if you do 5%, that's around $200,000. I think the number that you guys would be at is right around 2, somewhere in that range. So that would subsidize your property tax. Well, in reality, what happens is we're going to put a bet on that adding the value to those roads is going to add value to those properties, which in return should pay us back. So that means it's going to should pay back what the other property owners are paying on property taxes. It'll put it back in the coffers where it came from because of the increased value of your homes in your community. I can't verify that, but 359 homes is a lot of houses. And if it was $60 a house for 10 years, that's not a lot of money per house to get a return on. And think about how your taxes have gone up, you know. So that's my thought process. So on that note, I know that there's going to be people that don't want to have it done, and those that do. So I'm going to open it up to you guys to ask questions. If you know, what is your feel for? What do you want? What is it you're looking for? What do you think is fair to the rest of the community for us to subsidize you? That's putting a big thing on your shoulders. You can do it from right there. We're not going to hold you.
I'm Linda Drollis. I live on Taggart Lake. We moved into this in 2015 and have loved Highland, Michigan ever since we moved here. We do walk the roads. We do see the condition that they are in, and we are in agreement with you that they would increase the value. We also look at it as a safety factor because some of the roads are quite dangerous for people to either bike on or to walk on. You guys are in the same conundrum as we are, is when you're going to try and get money to have an improvement, it becomes very difficult to figure this out. And it was at the informational meeting that came up that one of the longtime residents had said, you know, the township has helped in these projects in the past, and so this is the reason why we came to you. And I think it's really just one of those mutual benefits for us to be able to help one another out, both in the safety factor and in the beautification of the neighborhood, the increase of value. There has been reports from other real estate agents that have done road improvements to say that there had been an increase in the value. So it's really working together on a major project that will help benefit all.
Yes, sir.
So I agree with what she's saying, but when they gave us the map, there's a little dirt street 300 yards from my house, Dale Drive. There's 3 houses down there. They're paying $0 because they live on a private road. They have to use all of our roads to get to their road and more of the road than some of the people that actually live in the sub. So when I'm paying 10 grand and they're paying 0, that's not fair.
Well, now you see where we're sitting, that you're gonna pay 10 grand, and if we are going to subsidize you, what about all the other people that have lousy roads that we haven't asked or we aren't getting them redone? So that's kind of the thing. I think in your case,
I mean,
ironically, I think I ran into the people that are on the dirt road, and they were asking about, you know, the process, and I told them I couldn't really give them an answer on it. What you're doing is your roads, because in the past it seemed to make sense to give them to the county, because I think we all thought that the county was going to take care of them. They do their best with what limited. I mean, they have less people working for them today than they did 20 years ago. So they're in the same conundrum as everybody else is, trying to do more work than they have the manpower and the resources for. And they get their money from gas tax, and that's it. So your scenario, like the rest of the roads that are, quote, county roads, the county's plan is more likely than not, if you don't want to do this, and they get enough complaints, they'll turn it to dirt. And you can't do anything about it. I mean, they can come in, they can grind that thing right up, right there in the spot. I mean, I'm sure they would try and talk it through, but I mean, that is the scenario. And they've, you know, there's been a couple of subdivisions where they've actually had a discussion. Well, rather than try and repave, let's just put it back to dirt. And they're almost more willing to do that than they are to get involved in the paving part. So.
In the informational meeting, it sounded to me like Mark said, if you don't maintain your roads, they will turn to dirt. Not that they're gonna come out and grind them out and turn them to dirt, but over time, like some areas, they are turning to dirt.
Right.
And they can only pothole patch to a point. So it's that would happen. If we don't do anything, then they will continue to deteriorate. I don't know in my heart of hearts whether it will actually increase the value of properties, but I know it won't continue to decrease the property values.
Right.
So it's sort of the inverse. Dale Drive is dirt road, private road, and the county has no jurisdiction over it. And those people on Dale Drive, although the roads to get there, we all like Milford Road now, that's paved, you know, that's how you get there. They have no other choice but to drive on these other subdivision roads to get to Dale Drive. But that's a private road, and they'll actually not receive any benefit. On the other hand, over by the church, there's a road, Meadows Road, I think. None of those people live or will receive any benefit from it, but it's a condominium association, and that condominium association has frontage on the main road, so all the people on that road do have to pay. So it's, you know, give and take on that.
Yeah, it's a difficult decision because I don't care what anybody says, 10 grand or $14,000 is not a small chunk of change. The fortunate part is the county's willing to finance it. Is it a 10-year project?
With
Finance it
interest.
for 10 years at a
Interest, yeah,
pretty,
6%.
yeah.
Yeah. The
Wish we could
alternative
get
is,
6%, that would be
the
sweet.
alternative is we collect money ourselves, and when we have cash in hand, we can hire a contractor. And they said, you know, you can get the approvals through the county that we could pave our roads and would avoid the 6% or whatever. But then it's on us to do all that legwork and hire contractors.
Would they maintain the roads if you had it, if you did it privately?
That question was asked
not
at the
sure.
informational meeting, and Mark Mesler answered yes, that they would still be maintained.
As
by
long as they're up to
Highland.
their
As long as they meet their
specifications.
standards, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Interesting.
And that's kind of, we had a conversation the other night quite extensively that, I didn't know whether, the county would be willing to let you go that route, but when they do that, they're not gonna finance it.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's
Had
that's
nothing
where
to do with
the
it.
difference is. And, but there are, and I think some of you are probably aware, but there's a product called chip seal that has been used all over the country forever. And in fact, it even predates asphalt, which is a product that you can't put it on those dirt holes. It won't hold up, but you'd have to patch those and fix those. But as long as it's not all totally spider webbed, it's a tar and stone material that if you go out of Oakland County, you'll find it on almost every farm road. They're not asphalt, they're chip seal. And that's those ones where they put the tar down and then they put the stone on it and you go, geez, man, I got this crap all over my car, or you get a windshield chip. That's what people complain about. But the net result is it's more elastic than asphalt. It seals cracks in asphalt. They've actually found that if you chip seal an asphalt road, it'll increase the lifespan by 7 years. So by putting goo in the cracks, that doesn't work. But if you could find out what the chip seal is significantly cheaper, but it's back to that, how do you finance it? So.
Well, do they have the option to ask for a special assessment district and have us bonded it out through the township?
This is through a special assessment district.
But through the county,
Oh,
so,
We do have the capability to do that, but
right.
you're gonna go through bonding costs, which
Bonding costs are $40,000.
last time we bonded was about $35,000 on top of whatever we borrow. And that's been a while.
Yes, Mary.
I would personally be in favor of contributing 10% to this project. The township has a history of doing this. I know it's a big chunk of money, but that's only because it's a big project. That's a lot of homes and a lot of roads to do. And I think it does add value to the township, not just to those residents, but the township as a whole.
Agreed.
And we have the money. Back in '09, Judy and I talked about this afternoon, when Exford Acres came in, because that was a huge project too, and they asked for help. The township was in pretty dire straits then. That's the 2009 is when we had to do cutbacks in personnel. The funding from the state wasn't coming in, but we have the money. We have a large chunk of money in capital improvement, and that to me is what that money is for. And we should be doing that for this, and it's no guarantee that you're gonna do it, because you still have to get all your neighbors and stuff on board. But I think if they knew the township was gonna do this 10%, maybe that would be the impetus to move it forward. Because if you don't do it, it's a continual decline, and then you have a few people trying to patch a little spot here and a few people and it's a mess. It's just a mess. And it sounds like what they're gonna do in your neighborhood is pretty extensive. It's not just, mill and fill, it's the whole work.
Right.
So you have to do that. The county wouldn't do that if they didn't think it was necessary.
Yeah.
So I think it's a reasonable request, and it's something that this board should do.
At the Neighborhood Network Community Roundtable, we had a brainstorming session not very long ago and talked about what had happened in different subdivisions. And Harvey Lake Estates elected not to do it. And I haven't driven through there, but apparently there's a paving spot and then a spot that's gone to gravel and then a paving spot. And like you said, Jay, it might not increase the value, but it definitely decreases the value. It decreases the appeal. Harvey Lake Estates off of Wardlow. There's 2 roads there. One road opted in.
Pruitt, right?
Pruitt opted in. I think that's the one on the lake, right? And then Nottingham elected not to.
and it shows.
It shows.
It does show.
Especially at that
So it's
curve,
very
a
interesting that
total
we have
wipeout.
examples that this is what happens if you don't. So I agree with Mary. I think it's a good thing to show our good faith and encouragement and kind of our skin in the game to invest back into the township.
I kind of go back to what Rick said. He said, you know, it's like, first thought we're setting a precedent. We are kind of resetting a precedent because we haven't done this in 13 years, but maybe it's time we reset that precedent.
No, we
because-
have done it. We've
No, I'm just saying though, but I had no idea, so I saw
It's
this
been a
either.
while, yeah.
I mean, it's been 13 years, and maybe it's time we start. We always talk about the money we have, and maybe it's time to start reinvesting back into it's a way to give back,
It is a way to.
which we've talked about a lot on this board.
But
My
we
point,
haven't
I'm saying, I know we've done it before, I'm just saying, but it's kind of like we're reinstituting a precedent, because we haven't done, I had no idea we did all this in the
Yeah,
past,
but
because I
it's,
wouldn't have known, but
we
it's
haven't had
good.
any requests to do it either.
No, I know.
In the last.
But I'm just saying though, but maybe, and if other people come to us, then they should, because it is a reinvestment back into our community.
Yeah, don't pass this around. We don't-
No,
And we've
absolutely.
Oh, it's on
talked-
video,
This is
we're
what your
screwed
board
now.
is here for.
Well, we've talked about putting money into sidewalks too, into some kind of sidewalk
Yeah.
projects, and I think the roads come first.
And when you have a resident that was here back in 1982, and that's what stuck in his mind is that the township helped with the project, it does mean a lot. There's value.
Yeah, that was in Highland Hills. That was $40,000. So, Gary, you had a,
So, it doesn't sound like their need for the money is imminent,
Right.
which
They don't-
suggests to me
They don't have the
that
commitment yet.
that you may, as a board, want to talk about this issue and develop a policy without regard to this particular project that any subdivision association couldn't bank on necessarily, but if the board was on record with a policy of assisting with these kinds of projects, and maybe even had some general guidelines as to what it would consider contributing if it had the funds, such as per parcel, or, you know, maybe it's a percentage of project cost, but I'd recommend that, so you don't end up with, on this one, we decided 10%, then somebody else come in and want 10, but for some reason or other you can't do 10, or you don't wanna do 10. I would think you'd be better off having a policy that's established as a board policy that then associations could plan on accordingly.
And
I
that's
agree
a
with
great
that.
idea, but for this one, I'd like to see the board make a motion tonight. You can word it so that it is contingent on that project going forward. We will contribute 10% of whatever that project is, because it might not be a 380, because if you don't get all the streets, but only some streets, you know, whatever streets get done, I think the board should be doing 10% towards it. And, you know, Gary, for the policy, if we do that, it should also say depends on the funding the township has, because
Right.
right now we have the cash and we have the ability to do that. In '09, we didn't, so, you know, that's gotta be part of the policy too, that we have the funds available to do that. But, on that note, I would make a motion to contribute 10% of the paving project for the Highland Hills subdivision, if it moves forward.
I'll
Is that
support
enough?
Oh, no, that's a,
Is that enough on the motion, Mr. Dobry?
If it moves forward through the road commission special assessment process,
Right.
you probably should put a
with a maximum
cap on
amount
it.
of, right now you've got an estimate. By the time it
Oh,
actually goes
good one.
forward, that estimate,
Because it
or
hasn't
the
gone out
actual
to bid.
construction cost could be considerably more. And I
Well,
wouldn't think, if I'm a board member, I'm not gonna wanna write that kind of a blank check.
then I would
10%.
put a limit of 400,000 on it, gives
Yeah,
them a little bit
some
of,
not to exceed number would make sense
yeah,
to me.
not to exceed 400,000 then.
Would I make my motion at this time?
Did that motion get seconded?
I supported that, and I'll support the.
I think Mary Pat
Excellent.
has something to say.
Yes, because I live in that subdivision too. I'm not sure, and I would gain by this whether it would be right for me to vote, so it's up to the board to decide whether or not I should vote on this.
And you would like to abstain?
I would like to abstain from the vote, yes, unless the board disagrees. I leave it into your hands.
So that requires a motion to approve the request from Mary Petchenowith to abstain from voting on this question.
From which she would directly financially benefit.
with those words attached.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported.
So we can vote on this before we vote on the other?
Yes.
Okay.
Should.
Okay. Mr. Howe,
Yes.
Yes.
does she vote on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
No, I don't get to vote.
I vote yes.
Yes.
What do
I think you
vote,
need to
Mark?
say yes.
I think I need to say yes.
Okay.
I gave her a hard way to go earlier. I think she should sit there and actually vote on it,
I've
but
been stirring about this the whole time, so.
difference of
Weird
opinion.
situation.
So, you will not vote.
Well,
You don't have to disappear.
okay, I don't
Gary?
have to leave.
So, the motion's been made, you don't have a policy. Mary, did you have in mind where that money would be coming from?
From capital improvement.
So, and this would be a
With
2020
this motion being
project?
based on the availability
least.
of funds in the capital.
Well, I know they are there, so.
It could possibly be 21 though, because if they wait for the
Yes.
pipeline to go through first.
Well,
So-
that's another.
Yeah, we've put contact in as far as whether or not, originally back in April when we contacted them, they said that it would not impact the subdivision, but we've asked for an update on that so that we know exactly what's going on. The petition's supposed to be done for 90 days. We're hoping to get it started mid-October, which would put it into the 2020 docket as long as the road commission was available to do the job.
Okay, I'm gonna throw in some
What is
discussion
in the,
on
what is
this.
in the capital improvement?
I'm sorry?
How much money is in the capital improvement?
Just a minute and I'll tell you.
There's at least $3 in it. So, I don't disagree completely with, the 10%, but one of the things I was trying to use is what kind of factor could you use that would not be just a percent of, you're just picking a flat percent of the project. And what it turns out is that your 399 or 359 homes is 5% of the homes in Highland. So I used a factor of 5.4%, which would say that, we're allocating it as a per home percentage basis. That would have been 205,747. But you're fortunate you had somebody already threw it out on the table. But I want the board to think about that for a minute, see if that makes any difference in your decision. It's up to you. That was just my comment. So, any other comments?
Brian asked what was in the capital improvement fund. At the end of August, there was $4,457,877.91.
Ignore that look. I just had an aha moment that
I see
you
that.
guys don't need to know about. So,
So, may I ask, Mr. Hamlin, you said that the number of homes in this subdivision is 5.4% of the number of
Households in the
households in
township.
the township.
right. It just seemed like to me that it's before the number was thrown out there.
That would be less arbitrary.
But that's got nothing
It
to
was
do
just,
with
it was
the
just a
amount of-
statistics that
It's
was
just
asked
a
for.
number. I don't think
He
it's
doesn't.
relevant.
See,
Right,
here's-
no, he
Andy.
does not, yeah.
This is an interesting thing here, and it's to keep your emotions up a little bit for a second. I could have thrown this out quicker, but I knew somebody was going to want to throw something out there, and I kind of held back on it to see if it happened. So that's what happened. So if that means anything to you, I could have made a motion, and the way I handled this was to have discussion before, which opens the door for motions from the board. So it's the way that you play board politics. And I purposely did it that way because I really wanted to see if the board would throw something out there besides me doing a number here. So I think that that's a good thing. generally what you do is you make somebody put a motion up, you second it, and then you discuss it, and then you can decide whether you agree with it or not. So in this case, I think we've all heard the commentary on it. So we're talking about a motion that is up to $400,000, which is roughly 10% of the project. I don't know that we need to put a 10% figure.
Well, the motion was 10%,
10%.
Right, not to
$400,000.
exceed
I think
400,000.
that's
Not to
correct.
exceed 400.
Yep.
So that's the motion. If there's no more discussion, then we can vote on it.
Okay.
Good.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Mary Pat, what would you say about that?
Say thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I've been waiting to ask a question. I'm Dawn, I also live in the South, and I went to the last meeting. And my only concern with this whole thing is not everybody has the money for this.
That's one of the difficulties of group dynamics.
Right.
I mean, and
But when I said you'll force me out of my home with my children, they said, it happens.
Wow.
well, I don't.
No, that is what he
Yes,
said, that is
that's what
what
he said.
that is what he said to my
Yeah.
face.
Absolutely.
He said that
And
is
I'm
what
in the
happened.
same.
I said I'm a single mom who adopted my children. I don't get any extra money. I get nothing. I've been there 10 years. I understand the roads. I'm not arguing the roads.
Then here's a
You know, I wanted to say I came to the township with paper for a quitclaim deed. I asked somebody in the township, if I file this, does it change my taxes? No, because you're still the original owner. I was taking somebody's name off my house. I said, okay. This year my taxes went up $500. I came back and I said, hey, you guys said this wouldn't happen, and you guys have a new assessor. And she said, well, you filed a quitclaim deed. I said, but I came here before I ever filed anything, and they said it wouldn't change. But you filed the paper, so we're sorry, but you're stuck paying it.
I hate
So I already
this
got hit with
assessment.
that.
So,
It's just emotional.
Well,
I
of
like
course.
where I live.
Yeah.
Understandable.
What's your address?
4127.
just lock.
Walk right.
And I know I'm not the only one in that financial situation. You know, I've been there 10 years. I love the place. We go for the walks too. We like our neighbors. But to be pushed out of my home, and he said, but before you leave, there'll be a lien on your house and you will pay that money.
There's a special assessment deferment, and I'm not sure if you have to be a senior or not, but I'll look into that for you. If you'd like to leave your phone number, I'll see what we can find out for you.
Okay. I mean,
They
I just
did-
thought the whole meeting last time was so against people who really said, I just can't afford it. You know, and he said, well, sell your house. He goes, but you're going to pay that money out of your equity. Well, how did he know I had equity? You know what I
Right.
mean? What if I just bought the house and I didn't live there 10 years?
Right.
That is one of the major problems when you get in, when community components do
Right.
these special assessment districts. And there's a couple of things that kind of hit you, there's septic fields will do that to
Right.
you.
No, I know.
Sewer systems will do that to you, water systems. And nobody's trying to be specific. I know there's people out there that made some unnecessary comments to you. And I think that maybe what you need to do is you need to look as a group and go, how can we address that? If that would be the better way to do it. If the township says, okay, we're willing to give up to $400,000, maybe you need to look at that and use that as part of how to address that. And that would be your prerogative as a group, whoever the leaders are in your community. But now there's an avenue that, okay, we got people that can't afford it. The township said, we'll help. How can we help? We can help by saying, you guys take that money and do what is the right thing with the money. And that may be looking at these people that it could damage or put them out of their homes and do something about it. That's just something that I would look at and
Do we
say,
give some money to the homeowners association,
No.
or do we pay it directly to road commission?
It would go directly to Oakland County.
Yeah.
so,
I'm sorry, Judy, what you said?
It would go directly to Oakland County.
so you're not getting a cash payout, but it might be something to look at. How can you deal with it?
We did talk about this. In fact, Don, your story hit us pretty hard, and we actually met afterwards and talked about what options do we have. We even talked about potentially even going to the local businesses that might be willing to, we throw out like GoFundMe accounts or something for those individuals that either don't meet the criteria for the deferment plan, or we have no other options. But it's something we are discussing because it is a tight-knit community, and we
Yep.
do feel the angst of those that cannot pay this. And we are looking at that option. If it is available with that money, that's something that we need to talk about and see how we can work through it so that
I don't
it's
know,
fair
I'm
and
just throwing something
equitable.
out. It might be, like right now, there's a dollar amount that's been played on the table.
Right.
How it's actually used or what we can legally do with it. Can we pass it to a homeowners association with the intent that it gets used to defer cost and maybe has some magnanimous intent to it? I don't know if we can do that, but we can look into it.
Yeah.
So,
And you've got time to do that, and so I think that the intent is that you've got a board that agreed that we would spend up to that amount of money, and now you guys have some serious get down to the ground and see how you're can make it work so that you don't have as many people. I don't know how many people are out there in the same shoe. I know there's people there, but
so a couple options. So you have the special assessment deferment, and I'll look into that to make sure it's not just for senior citizens. If you qualify for that, you would, it would be paid back upon the transfer of the house. So when you sell the house or upon your demise. The other option is you can go to the Board of Review and appeal for a poverty exemption. If you make below a certain threshold and you have a certain number of people in your home, you might not qualify for zero taxes, but you would definitely, they can reduce your taxes. So there's a couple options in there too. So again, leave your phone number and we'll see what we can.
And I'll be honest, I make pretty decent, I don't make good money, but I make decent money because I work overtime every week to keep up with my bills already.
Right.
well, it's still worth asking.
Right, no,
Absolutely, and there's tools out there for people in your situation.
They always tell me I'm right in the middle.
Mhm.
You make just
You
over.
fall right between the cracks,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes,
And I
yes,
don't ask
ma'am.
for assistance,
I live on Lock Drive also. I'm in the same situation as Dawn, single mom. I'm on disability. I've lived in a Highland on Lock Drive for 25 years, raising my kids there. The roads, there are some spots, but the road that I drive, fine, no issues. What's gonna happen to me next year if this takes place? My youngest is 17, so the benefit of having the support, that's gonna be gone. It's gonna add another payment, and I'm gonna lose income at that time, and I might be in the same position as Dawn, where I might have to be forced out of my home.
Well, nobody
And
wants
I
that.
was told the same thing from the gentleman from the Oakland County Road Commission, what was his name, Mark? Yeah, same thing.
That's terrible.
So, yeah.
Sorry, but
I was like,
don't treat
too
people
bad.
like that.
So, I can't afford it, so.
There's also low interest loans available through Oakland County for home improvement. Whether or not this would qualify if it did go through, it's another option. And again, it's low interest and you pay on the sale of your house, so it's not an immediate hardship to you. So there's a couple different things I can think of right off the top of my head, and we'll pursue it and see where it goes.
And I brought up the tax thing only because if you guys really live in our south, we don't always get our mail. So the first thing the township said was when you got your asset, why didn't you contact us right away? Maybe we could fix something. I said, I never got it. Today I got my neighbor's mail. I had to walk across the street, and guess what? He had my mail sitting on his porch with his package. We don't always get our mail.
Do you call the post office? That's wrong.
Well, it is wrong, right. Yeah, my sister sent packages and went 3 houses down. I'm just saying we don't always get our mail
That's
either,
true.
so we try our best to.
All right,
keep
well,
up with the bill.
we're gonna draw the
Sure.
conclusion to this tonight, and
Oh, yeah, she needs to call.
I think that, I have to say thank you to Mary McDonald for offering up a generous offer, and the rest of the board for agreeing to it. And I do feel for you in the back, and like I said, come in, and I know you came in over the quitclaim thing, and I don't know what happened there, but assessing can be a weird bird. And so come into the township. Judy's an excellent asset to talk to, and she's the treasurer and works on the property taxes from that end. So make sure you do come in and ask some more questions, because there are a lot of different avenues out there. But unfortunately, they all end up in, when you sell your house, somebody pays the piper. And if you get it deferred, it's just like deferred taxes. It hits you when it's in the wrong time. So, but thank you for coming in, and we appreciate that the opportunity to be able to increase the value of the community, because I know most people don't like
heard
those.
from realtors that you can put an addendum on the sale of the house that lien would transfer to the buyer. It has to be agreement between you. Transparency is good in that case. Tell them, it has this lien, you've seen this lien. I think Mark said you have to be current on your current year, then you can transfer the remaining however many years to the buyer. So it doesn't necessarily come out of your net proceeds
Right.
entirely.
It's just odd that he says something different to different people. He straight out said to my face.
Right, I understand. I
You
was
will
there. I
pay for
heard what
it.
he said, yeah. But I've talked to some realtors,
Okay.
and they
Oh, I see
said
what you're
that's
saying.
a pretty simple thing when you're selling your house to put that burden on the buyer.
Oh.
Do you know the individual's name that from the county?
Mark
What?
Miss.
Gary?
Mark Miss.
Couple things.
Yes.
The quitclaim deed that's been referred to, did that result in uncapping of taxable value?
It sounds like it.
Yes. That's
Have either of you seen that actual deed? It's worth taking a look at.
Oh,
There are-
absolutely.
There are so many exemptions from uncapping.
Yep.
If it was simply to take a name off, it may be worth a look. Secondly, these township special assessment statute at least was recently amended, I don't know about the road commission, so that the lien from a special assessment is an annual one. The lien is simply for the installment for that current year, so that we just.
It's not for the whole special
Right.
assessment.
And then finally, I don't know that the road commission special assessment statute has a special assessment deferral that Judy mentioned.
Okay. Again,
It may,
I'll look into it.
I'm not sure.
I think you mentioned that. You asked not the deferral, but you asked the question about transferring the debt to the new owner.
real estate agent.
I had a realtor tell me it's a common practice
Right.
when there's an assessment like that you can put an addendum on your deed or something that.
That would be, you'd have to look at the contract with Oakland County, because they have this tendency to say, nope, we want it in full.
Okay.
Because what they're doing is they want to get their money back as fast as possible. They don't want to have everybody extended out. So that would be something that may not happen with Oakland County. So
Oakland County answered that question at the meeting to check with a real estate agent. So it sounded to me as if this was what would occur at a transaction of a home sale versus impacting there. But again, we'll check on it.
now you guys have an attorney?
No.
Can we borrow yours?
that's something you definitely want to make sure you have, because those contracts are not something that you can just sit down and figure out. And Gary's our expert, and he's always finding stuff that we do with the county that he goes, what? So definitely you do not want to go through with this without having an attorney on board. So
Somebody in your neighborhood or somebody, maybe he's an attorney that could, you know, maybe some of the neighborhood's an attorney that could step up.
I was just thinking that, yeah, we'll look into that.
Can I say something else real quick? I want to thank you for coming in, because a lot of times we have stuff on the agenda and people don't show up. It helps us, I mean, obviously with your stories, it means a lot to know, and maybe we can help you, and you can share with others, you know, what's going on. There are people in the same position, say, you know, there's some options where everybody's, you know, I know how it gets when you feel like you're backed into a corner, there's nowhere to go. You know, and you telling what you guys are dealing with too, it means a lot more, I think, when we can actually see some real life stuff going along with this. Like I said, many times the agenda will have stuff like this and nobody will show, and so you don't really, I mean, you know what you're voting on, but you don't get the personal part of it. So I appreciate you coming in and sharing your stuff with us. I think it's very important. That helps us get a better perspective. I drove those roads for many years. I taught driver's ed. I was always the guy probably scaring you, so sorry about that. That was part of one of my routes, going back and forth in those roads, back through there, doing down one and back the other and stuff. So yeah, so.
I appreciate you.
So he wore them out.
Yeah, we did.
That's what the problem is. He wore the roads out, so you better talk to him.
Can't blame us, so we went out of business. That's no longer there, so.
All right, well, thank you
glad.
very much, and if you want, we're gonna work on the budget next. It's gonna be fairly limited, hopefully.
Ma'am, did we
speedy.
get your address and phone number by any chance? Did you want to leave that, did you give it? Yeah, leave it with us, so.
And thank you again for asking and coming in, and good luck.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
consideration.
Yeah, thank you all for your
Good
time.
luck.
Thank you. Mary's.
It would be nice if we really could do more. But
I think just the,
Mary short-sheeted you, she didn't go 15. Just
I think the gesture by the township,
Yeah.
as we talk to residents to try to pass something like this, will go a long way to know that we're all in the game together as a community.
Well, you are
stuff.
what make us be able to work here.
Right.
Without your taxes, and your votes, we're not doing this for votes. Trust us. This is there aren't enough people in here for that right now. It's because it's important that you are residents, that we're here to support you, you know, and that's what we are doing. That's why we took the job. So it's not our personal thing that we're working for. It's you hired us to help you. So that's what we're here for.
Please reach out if you have more questions too.
Okay, that's what I was
That's
gonna
our job.
ask
That's
too,
our
if there's
job.
a way that we can meet, if there, in regards to some ideas that we might have for those that need additional assistance, would we call you and set up a time?
We can do
Yeah.
that.
Or,
I
Yeah,
think-
we can do
especially
that.
with the monies that has been allocated for those.
Yeah, and I think that, we probably should, we'll get some more information about what legal, how we
We'll get our
can deal
facts
with it.
straight and then
Okay, good.
You know that you have the support.
Yes, right.
Take that back and try and make it happen, if you can hopefully make it happen. It's sad to, that, you know, not everybody has the same resources. You guys are in the back are a perfect example of that. I'm glad you're able to own your homes. I mean, and the truth is, we never really ever own them.
That's right.
We're just renting them from somebody, but I really appreciate that you did come in and bring us up, because it's kind of like a wow, that's an ask. Don't ask,
Yeah.
you won't know. It's exactly what I was getting at with the bus program. We're doing the same thing. We're going to go to the next higher level and say, hey, help. So.
And I always say that I'm so lucky to live in a township where we know who our board members are.
It's like Cheers,
And-
right?
Yes, it is.
Judy!
We were at the come back in, and that's what I said. It's like a Cheers bar.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. So you don't have to hang, you can go ahead, we'll take a second here and let you.
Marina, we're going. We're on.
Thank you all again.
She's gonna go have a
Don't
glass
forget
of dragon's
jacket.
blood.
Jacket, Marina. What'd you say?
I said you're gonna go get a glass of dragon's blood.
You can come on up if you want to give me your names and.
We do have a budget workshop tonight. We also have another one next month. I can do this in a short fashion by saying, has everybody looked at the budget?
Yep.
Are there any standouts or questions that anybody has so we can zero right in on those?
I have a question. Just about the 3% increase for all employees. Is that
Uh-huh.
been the standard? Is that what that was last year too? Did we do that? Was it
Yep.
3%? Just, I feel sometimes that I don't know that other things, businesses and everything, get a 3% every year like that. I just want us to be sensitive to that. Think about that. But I know people that haven't had raises in years, and that if they do get one, it's 1%.
One thing we've talked a lot about is should we have a salary study done?
I know, we have to.
Have a what?
A salary study done. I mean, we've batted that around on and off for a long time.
And I know you've called places and got averages and everything. I just know the people that I talk to and that, you know, if they don't get regular raises, they're still, the economy is improving, but not for everyone.
I think the county's 3.5%.
Is that, you mean, you're
That's what
talking the
they're-
public employees?
Yeah.
I'm talking people in private industry
Right.
though. I don't think private industry, manufacturing and things, I don't think they're keeping up with that. I'm not
Well-
talking union people, I'm talking other small shops and places around that are in Highland or where Highland people work. Just keep that in mind.
The Township of Milford had a salary study done that covered all employees. And because their board had a really tough time coming to terms on what their employees should be paid. And they paid, I don't know, $6,000-7,000 for this study. And what they found out is they were severely underpaying their employees, and they ended up giving sizable raises to almost all their employees. And we could certainly go down that road.
Well, I just want us to be sensitive to it, and I know, and I'm not saying they don't deserve it and everything, there's just some people that don't get that kind of thing, and I'm always sensitive to that when I hear those kind of stories from people, so.
The last few interviews that we've done, we've kind of left that almost blank and asked people what they expected. And that's been really kind of eye-opening as
You mean
well.
for opening?
For like
salary?
starting wage,
Mhm.
yeah, and what they would come for. So it's a whole new world out there. I mean, if we didn't up like the starting wage, we wouldn't have anybody to hire. So that's been really interesting too. And then you bring in a new employee at that level, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute. You look around them and go, you know, just like we did with Jen Bosch not very long ago.
Mhm.
It's like, wait a minute, we're hiring this person more than what Jen was making, and Jen will be the senior person in that
Yeah.
department, so it's something we're trying to
It's a tough one.
balance out all
Yeah.
the time. It's a
I
big.
mean, we very well could have a recession here in a couple of years, and we could, you know, there was a lot of years where there was 0 raises.
Absolutely, I understand that.
So it's almost kind of like you can do them when you can do them, and then in the years that you cannot, there's nothing. So
We're putting $400,000 into somebody's road. You know, so you can look at it, the employees could be going, wow, putting $400,000 into somebody's
Yeah.
road, but they're not doing that analysis, so.
And Rick, on page 5, the WODA, the new line item that you put that's with this whole agreement here,
Yes,
that's the budget for that?
yep.
That bus program is supposed to be self-sufficient. I don't understand why now we're funding the whole thing.
It's still self-sufficient from the fact that it's got a
Not if
grant
we're paying
right now.
$185,000, it's not.
Well, I explained why you need it to move on to the next level. And you can't depend on grants.
That certainly isn't
Every
what
year.
was discussed when we went that route with this bus
No.
program.
It's actually a whole different program. When we went with the bus itself, we were talking about how could we keep the bus alive and try to develop this. This is what it comes down to. These are what this is at some point the whole intent is to have a basis for its seed money and a basis for support in case things went south. If the program goes the way you want it to go, which is by garnering resources from the RTA and wherever else we can get them, then we won't have to spend that money. So that's what the game plan is. It's still the intent is to try and do as much with grant money and outside resources as possible.
When this budget was done, some of the changes are highlighted, but not all of them, and that's, I find it very distracting, so. we want
Which
to-
ones are you talking about?
There's a lot of them. See all the yellow
Talk about
highlights,
the
all of
color
those are
code.
changes from last year's.
Well, you caught them, didn't you?
Well, I'm just saying,
All
if
right,
you're gonna do
you
it,
can get, right, we
Well, I
can
think
get picky about
the
color.
salaries were 3%, so they weren't highlighted because they were uniform.
some of them are, some of them are marked and some of them aren't. It's just helpful if you're gonna mark it to call attention to any changes, then those should be done too.
Yes, ma'am.
So when we get, if we do, Wall Lake and the other one down here, which is, what they're aiming for, will that amount then go down and go pay part of this off, like with the other people coming on board with the WODA?
The 185 is the number that we have to expect to spend it's a 2-year agreement. So it lasts for 2 years. It's an experiment. In other words, within that 2-year period of time, any party can put in for a cut and run. It doesn't help the program any when that happens, but if you're going to be looking at the broader picture of things and what are some of the things we probably should be looking at being responsible for, like I said, if the RTA is going to come and do their thing and we don't have some type of a program in play, then we're just going to give money to the RTA.
I understand that, Rick, but I
And
just want
that's-
to understand this figure. So that is, like the 185 is our part of it, or that's with all of the people
That's our
coming?
part.
So, and they're
On the
paying,
back of the RTA thing here, the last 2 pages are the budget.
okay,
And what you can
Just
see
trying to
is
get a handle.
where the monies come from. So you've got 2020 actual funds, fares are $40,000, SEMCOG, software $20,000, FTA 5310 grant, $75,000, Highland Township 185, Walled Lake 138, White Lake 185. That comes to 643, 428. If you follow it all the way down, you still run into the hole because we also have outside funds, which are your community credits and smart credits. So when you add those back in, you end up $111 in the clear. And so what we tried to do was, initially we were hoping that we can make things work with 150 commitment, and that 150 could have been made up of any of your resources. But it doesn't work. I mean, it's a program that's got some, it takes work, it takes people, it takes resources, so.
With this cable TV franchise fees, which comes in, I know it goes into the general fund or whatever, but
Yep.
is there still anything we can do to help those that are unable, like Dale Fagley's been, I don't know, for 6 years I've been on the board, he can't. I remember going to a meeting a long time ago and somebody made the comment, well, he should just sell his house then. That's kind of the same comment, like I blew a gasket at that, man. You gotta be kidding me, somebody's gonna sell their house because, you know, he couldn't get cable. You know, but I know he's been complaining, I don't know if there's anything we can, I know it's problem is the expense, always the expense I always talk about, but I know you've talked about other options. Nice if we could do something, I don't know what you would do, it'd be nice if we do something just to help, not pay for their, per se, at least get them into what they want, to help them somehow. You know,
Here's the big problem is that there's other avenues, but people don't wanna pay the price for it.
Right.
And if you took the total cost of hooking up to the internet via one of the smart devices, and you paid for that over time, you'd still never come close to what it would cost Dale to just have him try and bring the cable down his driveway. So it's like $2,000 per pole. And they don't even have it on Pettibone Lake Road. So you'd have, it's so expensive that the cable company just says, we'll never get our return for it, so they won't do it.
Well, it's just frustrating, I've been doing this for so long, and we get these nice chunk of change coming in from them and from the other people that paid for it and stuff, or whatever, however it works out, but anyways, I understand, it's just frustrating, because it's.
But there are, we got the new thing that's coming around, which is the 5G, which is a whole different process.
Kind of scary in itself.
And so that may be what ends up getting them to them.
Comcast should be happy that somebody actually wants their service. You know, most people are complaining about Comcast.
Yeah.
You know, some people are begging to get it. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Okay, other questions? There is a change that I will mark up on this, and the next copy is on page 4, phone service. Our lease is up, so that'll reduce the expenditure for phones by I think it's $6,360. Somewhere in there, so that'll change that number will change.
It's gonna be an additional 6,000?
No, it's less.
Oh, it's less, it's going down to 6,360, okay, thank you.
It'll probably average around $5,000, I think, if we just round it, but. One of the things that we have put into the process is monies for capital improvements, and I thought what I'd do is I'll just read off some of the stuff we're planning on trying to take care of next year.
What page is that again? Write it on that page.
Let's see.
Is that on the 14?
Capital improvement page.
Yeah,
It's 401 is the fund number.
but that's on page 14, I think.
Capital improvement fund expense.
Yep, 14.
Okay,
So we've got 495,000 budgeted in there, and you can see there for parking expansion. Well, I talked to Dr. Salah and Jeffrey, I don't remember Jeffrey's last name, but
Van Gotham.
yeah.
Yep.
about, they came to me about fixing the road over here, the access to the school. And so what I said was, it belongs to the township.
Which one?
By the activity center.
Oh, right here.
That actually belongs to the township. So they've been beating it up with their buses. It also creates parking problems for people trying to get to the activity center and stuff. So I asked them about the possibility of selling, trading, joint venturing some land there for additional parking. And maybe coming up with an avenue to change their circuit for their cars waiting to pick up kids. So they were very interested in that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put together a couple of potential concepts that most of it will end up on their property, and it'll open up parking, a lot more parking, so that the baseball, all these people have places to park, which gives us more parking for events that happen in downtown and so on and so forth. So if we can come up with some way that we maybe can participate together, one of the thoughts is that we really need to get the water to the town hall and the activity center and the school over here, get them off these wells that we've got that are right on the border of the toxic plume line. And every time we have a well go out now, it costs us $25,000 instead of $4,500 because you got to put in a stainless steel well, and so it's significant issues with it. So I talked with them about bringing the water from our new connector there at Ruggles and bring it to the property and to the township, and then maybe we could share cost that too. So it's a way to kind of work together with them. We trade some, quote, land use or land for water, or so there'll be some negotiation numbers we'll have to put together, but that's something we'll try and come up with for next year. I doubt we'll do the water next year, but at least we'll have the concepts and the numbers that we can work for the following year. So we hired we haven't hired them, but we've or retained them, but we have agreed that we have an authorized architectural firm now to consult with, and Lindhouse and Associates, and so we're going to use the architect to do some cost design analysis for the town hall here and the activity center. The police building needs a complete redesign in the roof. It's got more than half of it's flat and is ready to give up the ghost. We pushed that one to its limits with the last coating of goo we put on it 4 or 5 years ago. What we might be able to do with the town hall, and then also some stuff with the parks. We've got Duck Lake. We need to rebuild the tennis courts, the basketball courts, and the hockey ring.
So that is in the budget to do that now?
Yep.
It's gonna be, and the hockey rink's gonna be redone or taken out?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
We're gonna get quotes on it, and if it's too expensive, then we'll see if we can get somebody to cough up some money to help. But there's a lot of, not for ice, because the ice never worked, but for rollerblading, because there's a lot of guys that use that thing.
Seen that.
I always thought nobody's using it. You go over there's always somebody using it.
Use
So.
it for a dog park.
And so we'll get those all refitted and repaired. And instead of using asphalt like we've used in the past that shrinks and cracks within the 2 years' time, I'm going to work with the architects to spec it for concrete, so it's more permanent. That would be on all of the elements. Hickory Ridge Road, we plan on expanding the parking into the, right now there's a line between the new parcel that we picked up. There's a tree line there, and we're going to take that tree line out. There's a bunch of old clunky stuff in there, and expand the parking so we can double the amount of parking for the soccer fields and then have that for the use of the other parcel. And there'll also be some repair that we have to do in the bathrooms over there. It's kind of like this building here, for some reason, whoever hung all the lights didn't hang them right, so they're trying to pull the ceiling down while the bathrooms over at the Hickory Ridge are doing the same thing, so the lights are kind of hanging in there. They're not dangerous, it's just drywall's coming loose and it needs to be addressed and fixed. We need to look at sealing the parking lots at Duck Lake Pines and at the activity center. And I think that was it. That's what I had on there.
So.
Oh, the cemetery. We're going to finish up this year with the budget we had set to clear the back corner, the northwest corner, and it's going to take a significant amount of work because they've been burying, just piling brush back there for year after year after year on top of itself. So we've got some quotes that we're getting to fix that, and hopefully we'll have that done this fall. Yes.
Comment on Duck Lake Pines. That park gets used so much. My husband's, he's on the senior softball league. They moved. They used to, tags, I think they used to call the place out there on 23 that they used to use. And they've all moved now at Duck Lake Pines, and they really like it there. And I think that's just like a showpiece for us in Highland Township.
Yeah.
We really need to take care of that place. We have so many people that come and use it all summer long. There's all the activities with the kids on the weekends and evenings, but daytime it's full too. There's a lot going on there, and so I really appreciate that we're gonna take care of that park.
Well,
Have we looked at the trails at all back there too, and the things back there going on?
We're constantly removing trees and things that fall.
And growing and pushing up the path, and
Yeah.
How big is that path, distance-wise?
is it 1.5 miles
Total,
total?
something
Yeah.
like that.
About 1.5 miles.
Something
Very
like
nice
that.
back there,
And those pathways will get addressed. We'll probably have to go in and slice out the cracks and replace it with some other material or something, but
But the part that shows in the buildings there and in the parking lot, I just appreciate the fact that we're taking care of our parks, because people who use them love them.
and then that cemetery part, the interesting thing there is they're probably, I'm gonna be on the positive side, there might be a couple hundred grave sites that can be brought open with that.
That can be, what with them?
That can be allocated for that.
Oh,
Oh, in the back.
Yeah, because it's just it's huge. It's bigger than this, way bigger than this room. So, all right, any other questions? The library fund, there's nothing in there because we're done with that bond. The DDA, we just got their information and we do that for audit purposes, and I'll have that in the next rendition, so. And the net at this point's about 24,000 to the good with revenue over expenditures, so. And I'd really like to give kudos to the 2 new employees we hired. They're working out extremely well. Extremely well. In fact, one of them today, she had this look on her face, and I asked her, I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Well, I'm trying to figure this thing out here," and it's our BSNA, which is the software we use for tracking the building and ordinances and stuff. And she's learning it. And she goes, "Why aren't these things all filled in here?" Meaning, there's places to fill in everything about everybody's lot. What are the setbacks, what's the zoning, and they're all things that you can just call up so that when when they're recording this information, like doing permits and stuff, all that information should
It's
be
there.
there. And so it's like, I don't use the software, don't have the time to be digging into everybody's stuff. But when you walk by and you have an employee who's never worked there before, never used BS&A before, opens it up and says, man, there's a whole bunch of stuff that nobody's filled out. That's a statement that is very disconcerting, so that means now we need to move forward and get that data filled in on everything moving forward, because now it'll make it so that we have that data available, there's less mistakes that are made, anybody could go up to it that's in the building department, pull up the file, you've got all your answers. But the way it is right now, if the individual that dealt with it isn't there, you're gonna have trouble getting all the answers, so. And there's a lot of stuff that was just done with hand paperwork and not filled in, so. New employee, major discoveries, so she's doing a great job. All right, so on that note, then what we'll do is we'll meet for the next budget meeting. If hopefully everything is good. If you have any questions, please bring them up or deliver them to the office, and we'll look into it. And at this time, I'm going to make a motion to go into closed session to consider confidential attorney-client privilege correspondence regarding levy versus Highland Township. Case number 2002-039581-CE.
Support.
Moved and support. Vote, please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So, we'll stop recording. All right, so we're returned from closed session, and meeting is adjourned.
Tammy, did